there, soulmates. Well, sometimes you just got to get yourself together up under here. If they could just see what happens under here, I think I'm ready. Plenty to discuss. We have made it to yet another Friday. Finally, Friday.
Happy Friday.
Yeah, same to you. We're going to tap in with our forever First Lady and what she has to say about marriage and the black media mogul who is calling out McDonald's for racist practices. I want to welcome you to FOXSOUL's Black Report. I'm Courtney Hicks.
And I'm Nicordelai Corte, plus the lawsuit against Netflix from Egyptians and comedian Speedy Caldwell. Join us later on the show for our entertainment headlines. They're the stories that impact our people.
All right, we're going to bring you our news, our views, and our voice. So let's get a little heavy for a moment and talk about today's top headlines. Tennessee Representatives Justin Jones and Justin Pearson, along with Gloria Johnson, will meet with President Biden at the White House. Biden previously thanked them on a conference call for spotlighting the undemocratic attacks on them. You remember the lawmakers led a gun reform protest from the chamber floor after a shooting at a local area school that killed 6. House GOP leaders moved to expel the 3 for breaking decorum rules. And after a debate, Jones and Pearson were expelled while Johnson survived. Now, the Metro Council and Shelby County Commission reappointed Jones and Pearson, and they will run in a special set primary and general election. The representatives have also met with Vice President Harris during her recent Nashville visit.
Now, this visit to the White House is super significant because rumor has it that next week, President Biden may announce his run for re-election, likely on Tuesday of next week. And so it's an interesting choice to have them there the day before. We know that he called what happened to them undemocratic and unprecedented. And so it's going to be interesting to see to what extent what happened in Tennessee and the fight for gun reform and the fight for democracy, to what degree does that become the theme for his re-election campaign?
I was going to say the optics are absolutely great. And there's never a coincidence in politics. Everything is very well meticulously planned out. So it'll be interesting to see how he possibly incorporates what has happened with these 3 representatives and the conversations and the fallout, how he may incorporate that in his bid for the presidency.
We'll see.
Very interesting.
The former police officer, Kim Potter, who killed Dante Wright during a traffic stop by mistakenly using her firearm instead of her stun gun, will be released from prison this week. Potter served 16 months in the Shakopee, Minnesota Correctional Facility and will have 8 months of supervised release. During the incident, Potter attempted to arrest Wright, who had an open warrant, and shouted, "Taser, taser, taser," before realizing that she had drawn her firearm. Now, Potter was convicted of manslaughter but received a sentence below the state's recommendation due to her clear remorse. She apologized to Wright's family during the sentencing.
So to add yet another insult to just an injury that I'm sure this family is still reeling in. I mean, you know, they can't see, you know, their son matriculate through life. He was already a young father. And this is why, you know, tapping into these stories is so important, because this has left the headlines, but yet we still have another development where she gets to go home, maybe to her young son or grandson, and enjoy the rest of her life with them. And a lot of people were just questioning, you know, how, as a trained cop, do you not know the difference between a taser and a gun? And it was at that point where they just couldn't see, you know, past her apologies to find it as remorseful as obviously the courts have found it.
It was very interesting to me the degree with which the judge had so much sympathy for Potter. The judge, you know, even said that, you know, she quotes, "never intended to hurt anyone. Her conduct cries out for a sentence significantly below the guidelines." And so, you know, we don't see that sort of sympathy from judges usually when we're before them. And so that really stood out to me in this story. But, you know, they say she expressed great remorse, and that's why.
All right, let's move on here. Chelsea Gilliam, she is a transgender woman who is suing the Maryland Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services over her alleged cruel and inhumane treatment while awaiting trial at 2 correctional facilities. Gilliam's lawsuit claims that she was treated worse than an animal by both staff and inmates. The lawsuit also sheds light on the mistreatment of transgender individuals in the prison system and advocates for more humane treatment.
Former NFL quarterback Colin Kaepernick has offered to pay for a second independent autopsy of LaShawn Thompson, an Atlanta inmate who died in his Fulton County jail cell just under sanitary conditions. Thompson's family believes that he was eaten alive by bed bugs, but the initial autopsy report came back as, quotes, undetermined. Kaepernick was disturbed by the conditions Thompson and other Fulton County inmates have been subjected to and contacted civil rights attorney Benjamin Crump to help the family. The family is demanding answers for the jail to be shut down. Kaepernick previously launched an initiative to offer autopsies for police-related deaths.
Yeah, he is just, in my opinion, the gift that keeps on giving. He saw a need and back in February of last year launched this initiative to whereas civil rights attorneys and folks on the side of justice can reach out to him for help for further autopsies that may find something different to help the case along and help the plea for justice. So again, Kaepernick staying, on the pulse of what is needed to bring about justice.
And it's also a reminder that the system is ill-equipped to help folks that have mental health issues. The inmate, allegedly had some mental health issues, and the prison guards, they knew that when they arrested him, and didn't care for him properly. I mean, for any human being to be in a cell that looked like that, we really have to take a look at ourselves and why are we allowing a prison system to exist that is treating human beings as less than human beings. So whether we're talking about this case or the case before it of, the trans woman, who said that she was treated worse than an animal. She said an animal is given more respect than she was given.
Right.
And she was, sexually assaulted, while incarcerated in Baltimore. And so, we can't just lock away the key and pretend that these folks are not human.
Agree. All right, let's talk about Chandra Graham, who has filed a federal lawsuit against the Oklahoma County Detention Center alleging she suffered severe facial burns while in custody. Graham claims she was held in inhumane conditions in the suicide watch wing without running water. The lawsuit names 9 trustees, the sheriff, the OCDC, and a detention center officer. A mix of unknown chemicals and other substances splashed onto her face, causing these burns. She was ignored for medical attention and aid over 50 times while in a behavioral health unit.
Former Dallas Cowboys star Michael Irvin will remain suspended from the NFL Network's 2023 draft coverage after being accused of sexual misconduct in February. An unnamed Marriott hotel employee made the accusation, claiming that Irvin harassed her sexually in the hotel lobby. Irvin denies any wrongdoing, stating that they only shook hands and has filed a $100 million lawsuit against Marriott International and his accuser. The NFL Network and ESPN removed Irvin from covering the Super Bowl after the incident. The NFL 2023 draft coverage starts on April 23rd without Irvin.
I think this has a lot to do, Nicolai, with his past, maybe still haunting him. He's apologized. He's done his time. He's faced his consequences. He's turned over a new leaf, a new life. You often see him, front and center at the Bishop's Church in Dallas. Sunday service. It appears as though his life on a better track, if you will. And if I'm not mistaken, I tried to fish around. Like there has not been any sort of kind of trial. There has not been any sort of kind of legal procedures to whereas once again, him to be deemed as guilty, obviously the network has a choice whether to have him on or not. But if there's nothing really proven that he is guilty, why not let this man work?
You're right.
He is a superstar, NFL superstar.
These are allegations.
Exactly.
And how often do we see that just based on allegations, people lose their livelihoods.
And have them canceled.
And in some cases, violence ensues and people lose their lives.
That's right.
What a shame here. I mean, I haven't seen a lot of people who are guilty of anything close to what people are accusing them of, that then turn around and file $100 million lawsuits
and
against those individuals and their employers.
He was very adamant when this story broke. He was very adamant. And, you see the video out now and you kind of go, and you kind of wait for something more to develop. It's been pretty quiet since now.
Yeah.
But, to them not to allow the man to work, under suspicion that something might have taken place, I think is a little off.
Yeah. And you think it's a hotel lobby. There's a lot of people walking around, and so the fact there haven't been other people that have said, "Oh, I saw this," or something of the sort. And so we'll continue to keep our eye on it. Michelle Obama shared her perspective on the challenges of marriage and how to make it work in a recent interview. The former First Lady, who has been married to former President Barack Obama for 30 years, said the commitment requires compromise and that people should not give up easily on their relationships. She was honest in saying that marriage isn't always fun. She also discussed gun violence, the importance of voting, and the Supreme Court's recent decision on abortion access.
I thank my forever FLOTUS, so much for her transparency and her authenticity and just her realness when it comes to, being in relation with someone. It is very difficult. I'm going into my 8th month, and don't get me wrong, I was a wife before he met me. Now I'm in the practice of learning to become his wife, because now dude has been identified and I have to learn him and learn how to be his wife specifically. But it is difficult. We come from two very different worlds. I got a Southern guy, a deeply rooted Southern guy with a very traditional conservative Southern family. And here I am, a heathen from Detroit, honey, a slick talking heathen chick from Detroit. So, there's this middle that we are finding. And I see how people can give up and be like, hell, I'm done.
No, I definitely see it.
We're in it to win it for sure.
You're 8 months in. I'm 8 years in.
Oh.
8 years in July.
Yeah.
Also a Southern guy. And, it isn't easy all the time. And, especially when, you have two folks that are, career driven and, really value family, have good relationships with family.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of compromise that happens.
A lot of compromise.
But we appreciate her for keeping it real. I think she's actually saved a lot of marriages, and she's, I think, caused people to rethink marriage because of the transparency.
She said she didn't even like Barack for 10 years.
10 years.
She said, but the last 20
and he the president of the United States.
Right. I was like, why you didn't like Prince? What? And she said the last 20 plus have been amazing. So
that's right.
There you have it.
She likes those odds, and so do we.
Yeah. Still ahead, Black tech professionals are getting real about the barriers they face.
That's right. We'll tell you what they say is their number one obstacle in the workplace when we return. You're watching FOXSOUL's Black Report. Welcome back to FOXSOUL's Black Report. Well, Byron Allen, founder and chairman and CEO of Allen Media Group, placed an ad in the Chicago Tribune to call out McDonald's.
Yeah, he's on fire. Plus, they are calling it out when it comes to the stakeholders. A man by the name of Carl Icahn. He's being called out for allegedly committing blatant racism against Black America. The ad outlined several lawsuits filed against the fast food giant by Black franchisees, former executives, employees, and the Black former head of global security.
That's right. Allen urged Icahn to fight against McDonald's discriminatory practices and join him and other investors in ending the systemic racism against Black people perpetrated by the company. Very strong words from Byron Allen.
Yeah, he's been on this path for a very long while now, claiming that, as a Black media company, he really has a hard time with media buys. They don't want to buy. They kind of curtail him and shortchange him, and hang-ups and no response back. And so he's been on this tirade, justifiably so, for a very long time. And to the point where there's been many lawsuits that claim this, not just with McDonald's, but with advertising agencies and other big name companies as well, who just seem to not want to buy into his company or allow that company to buy into their commercial time because of possibly it being minority owned.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. $1.6 billion in ad buys by McDonald's in 2019, of which Byron Allen is alleging that about $5 million of that went to Black-owned media. And so he's not just saying that's an issue, but he's saying that on top of issues that Black franchisees have raised in terms of being set up by the fast food giant to place them in communities that are low income or that are high in crime. So many other issues there. And so I haven't seen a response from McDonald's yet.
And he's a heavyweight. I mean, we're talking the Weather Channel. I mean, who doesn't buy commercials on the Weather Channel? And a lot of local news affiliates across the country that he owns, that you would think it would be advantageous to buy some advertising dollars and promote your product, but they refuse to do so. And he's a Detroiter too, and to watch his climb has been amazing as well. It's
going to be interesting to see how McDonald's responds, but more importantly, how the industry responds to some of the issues that he's put on the table.
True. Moving on here, campaigners are urging L'Oreal to withdraw its hair strengthening products largely used by Black women due to an increased risk of cancer. Politicians, activists, and industry experts have signed an open letter calling for research on the long-term use of chemical relaxers, coordinated by the feminist group Level Up. Recent research associates chemical hair straighteners containing lye with cancer. L'Oreal denies the claims despite nearly 60 lawsuits alleging its hair relaxer products cause cancer and other health problems. The Cosmetic, Toiletry, and Perfumery Association criticized the research, calling the link unfounded.
And 60 lawsuits is nothing to snuff at. I mean, remember the lawsuits against Johnson & Johnson related to the baby powder, right? And there's a chemical in the baby powder that was linked to, I believe, ovarian cancer. And so think about how long Johnson & Johnson said nothing to see here. These cases don't have any merit, and then look at what the results were, from that lawsuit. And so these 60 lawsuits alleging the same thing.
Sure.
That's nothing to shrug your shoulders at.
And I know the culture gets criticized a lot for playing the race card, but a lot of times that's the only card to play. I liken it to, the crack era. It was a war on drugs and destroy. And then, with opioids, it's let's, rehabilitate and help. And provide resources.
Whole different tone and tenor.
A whole different tone and filter there. And you can't tell me that isn't race-based, if you will.
Yeah, and a lot of these companies, they do research on these products, right? They don't just sort of decide, okay, we're going to release this relaxer tomorrow. There's a lot of testing that goes on. And so, really one of the questions that's been raised in this lawsuit is, well, what did the company know? Did they know about, the connection between certain products in these relaxers and its linked to certain cancers? Did they know that certain groups of people, i.e. Black women, were at an elevated risk? And so, hopefully, one way or another, we're going to find answers to those questions.
But there are plenty of products now, especially with the natural movement, that don't have those ingredients that are harmful. You just got to read the label, do some Googling, and make sure, soulmates, whatever you are using, you're not bringing any harm onto yourself. But, I think that if those stats had to do with women of a different race, maybe blonde, red, brunettes, that maybe this will be a whole different argument.
We sure are going to find out.
I'm just saying.
Well, according to a DICE survey of 2,500 U.S. tech professionals, the percentage of tech professionals experiencing racial and gender discrimination has increased. The report shows that 24% of tech professionals experienced racial discrimination in 2022, up from 18% in 2021, while 26% experienced gender discrimination, up from 21% in 2021. The survey found that underrepresented groups were less satisfied with their careers and perceived inequality at a much higher rate than others. A gap was also found between how often HR professionals and tech employees perceive discrimination as occurring, highlighting the need for organizations to create an equitable and inclusive workplace.
Very interesting. My brother, the one right up under me, he is a top executive. What is that, like top 50, top 10, top 20 companies. And he was highly sought after, and he accepted. And even being, highly sought after, a lot of expression, a lot of things expressed to him about how they wanted to come in and help the culture. And that was a big, push as to why he was hired. Even with that welcoming, he still finds it very difficult for people to buy into, who he is and what he has come to do, and the power, that he has. And he finds situations where they will still sidestep and curtail him, and he is clearly the one to go to, and he is in the tech field. And so even when some of these companies set out to make it better, it's just people's deeply rooted conditioning and filters that sometimes just stunt that type of growth.
And it's another reminder of how entrenched racial bias and gender bias can be in any industry. I mean, the tech industry, compared to a lot of other industries, is still relatively young, right?
Yeah, and relatively white. And, so it's very different for him to be in that seat.
It is. But with it being a relatively young industry compared to other industries, I think there are a lot of people that think, oh, okay, if young people, are at the helm, then you don't have to worry about some of the bigotry and forms of racial bias and discrimination that other generations have had to contend with. Not true.
That's right.
Not true. And so, the tech industry, we can't let tech off the hook, and also consider, if this bias is happening in the workplace, how is that bias seeping into the products and technologies that they're producing?
Well, on a lighter note, before we wrap this story up, that company discount is something else. Stay employed, bro. All right. According to an analysis of prison data published in Nature, the U.S. prison population fell by 200,000 during the early months of the COVID-19 pandemic. However, the percentage of incarcerated Black people increased in almost all states, reversing a decades-long decrease in the percentage of Black people in the national prison population. Now, while several factors contributed to the increase, including sentencing disparities between Black and white inmates, researchers argue that society can take steps to reduce these disparities. The authors of the research say the pandemic serves as a stress test for the criminal legal system, amplifying underlying disparities.
Today we have a special guest, Shanti Das, founder of nonprofit organization Silence the Shame.
Yeah, with a recent partnership with Sony Music Publishing, Shanti and her organization are on a mission to break the stigma surrounding mental health within the Black community and the music industry, which is where I know Shanti from. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Indeed.
Thanks for being here. So Shanti, tell us, what motivated you to start Silence the Shame, and what's the mission of this very timely organization?
Absolutely. So my father died by suicide when I was 7 months old, and my best friend passed away in 2014 by suicide. And then I came close to taking my own life in 2015. And so once I got the help that I needed, I knew this was something that I needed to really open up and share and be a little vulnerable about with my community. So Silence the Shame exists to educate and empower communities around mental health and wellness, especially the Black community. One of the things that we're doing at Silence the Shame is last year in the state of Georgia, we had Senator Anderson write a resolution on behalf of our organization designating May 1st as Black Children's Mental Health Day in the state of Georgia. And we're hoping to do this and take it to other states. We're the first state to ever recognize it. And with this report coming out, it seems like we're right where we need to be in terms of trying to draw attention to it, being able to really increase funding at the city and state levels and the national level for Black youth, providing programs for our youth, and just really being able to pour back into them so that they can have healthier outcomes and not look at suicide as an option.
Yeah, and talking a little bit more, Shanti, specifically about the goals of Silence the Shame in providing mental health education when it comes to training.
Absolutely. So we do a lot of different trainings now for major corporations, for community groups and organizations. And again, we're trying to erase stigma. I think there's still a lot of areas in our community where we need to destigmatize mental health. During the pandemic, we saw a lot of people start opening up about it. But what we're finding is even though people know the resources are there, they aren't always utilizing those resources. So we're trying to educate and empower those in the Black community so that they understand that getting help is actually a good thing. One of the things we also started doing was an event called Silence the Shame Sunday Dinners, where we make it a little bit more palatable. You know, come, let's have a good meal. It doesn't always have to be soul food. We can have some salmon and zucchini and squash or Brussels sprouts, but have a good meal and talk about something that's really important that's going to continue to save lives in our community.
I'm really hungry now after hearing you say that. You know, keeping with this idea of saving lives, you know, what advice would you give to our soulmates who are experiencing mental health issues right now? You have experienced mental health issues firsthand. You have founded this organization that is just really doing much needed work. What advice do you have for our soulmates?
The first thing that I would say, soulmates, is just know that you are not alone. Help and support is always there. There are a lot of really great local groups in your areas that you can reach out to. You can even, go to your hospital. If you feel like you're threatening to harm yourself, it's okay to go to the hospital and tell them they need support. You can call your primary healthcare physician. There's also some wonderful groups online that focus from a national perspective that leads you to resources. So like therapyforblackgirls.com is an amazing organization. Also therapyforblackmen.org. Black Men Heal, of course, silencetheshame.com. I could go on. And so I'm really great to see since the pandemic that so many other African-American groups around emotional health and wellness have surfaced. And that really, you know, it's just okay to get help. What's not okay is not getting the help, right? And so everybody has a story. And so being okay with being vulnerable and knowing that it's something that we all may go through one day, and it's nothing to ever be ashamed and embarrassed about.
Yeah, what a lot of people might not know, our careers crossed very early on. You were big in the record industry, and you really single-handedly helped shape a lot of the careers of some of the artists we know today and who have, you know, gone on to be greats. At what part in that journey, Shanti, because I remember, girl, did you turn the corner and want to shift and focus more in on you and this particular cause? Did something aside from, you know, what you mentioned, the two later occurrences, at what point, because you were big in the music industry, I'm gonna just put it out there, at what point did you choose to turn the corner and focus in on a cause like this?
Well, thank you for your kind words. And it was right around 2009. I was executive vice president of marketing and artist development at Universal Motown Records. And my mom had started developing dementia, and she was down south. Of course, I was in New York. My uncle passed away, so I dealt with a lot of grief that year. And then I went through some physical health issues, and I just wasn't happy. You know, I'm type A personality. I found myself going into the office, taking naps during the day. Totally uncharacteristic of me and what I would normally do. And so I was high functioning, but I was clearly depressed. And so I made a really tough decision to walk away and go home and start over and try to get my emotional health and wellness in order, my physical health, as well as dealing with a lot of the family stress and trauma that I had experienced from my mom developing dementia and Alzheimer's. Yeah,
well, you were missed at that point, but we're glad you're back doing what you're doing now. We appreciate you so much, Shanti Das.
Yes, thank you for having the courage to share your story and the energy and commitment to advance your very noble mission. Shanti Das, you are an honorary soulmate. Come back again soon.
Thank you. Good mental health is good for the soul, y'all. So let's get educated and let's get the help that we need.
Silence the shame. Thanks, Shanti. We'll see you soon.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
And coming up, Netflix is in major hot water and is also facing a lawsuit, all due to their portrayal of Egyptians. We'll break it all down to you when we return. Don't go anywhere.
You're watching FOXSOUL's Black Report.
And we want to welcome you back to FOXSOUL's Black Report. Nearly a year to the day after he was charged, Michigan resident Kenneth Pilone has been sentenced to prison for threatening a community with nooses and racist notes.
That's right. Pilone was charged in April 2022 with 6 hate crime counts of interfering with federally protected activities. He pleaded guilty to 2 of them in December 2022. A U.S. district sentenced Pilone to 10 months in federal prison and 1 year of supervised release.
Well, it's good to see this sentence and the consequences have come down. A lot of times in stories like this that they're a bit fleeting or don't really match the crime or what they've been accused of doing. So, you know, this is one of those follow-up stories to whereas, you know, he's going to have to pay the piper and, you know, suffer the consequences of his actions.
Yeah, but still, I think, you know, the consequences to me seem kind of light. I mean, when you read, you know, the charges, when you read what he did, you know, to me, it smelled like domestic terrorism. Like he inflicted fear, you know, in that community. It wasn't just one Starbucks, it was multiple Starbucks locations that were impacted, a number of people that were impacted, you know, and, you know, that's the kind of thing that, you know, could have gone from 0 to 100 in 5 seconds.
I agree, but we're dealing with, unfortunately, in some cases, with a justice system that doesn't believe that these acts are as critical or crucial as we know them to be, or as we know of them in regards to what they could result to. And so, you know, for him to have to, you know, suffer some kind of penalty is better than him walking off and people thinking or continuing to think that this behavior is acceptable and okay.
Well, you know, I just thought about equal justice under the law. And you know, I feel like he's getting off pretty light right here.
Oh, I agree with you. I agree with you. However, he is going to have to deal with something. All right. Earlier this week in Oklahoma, the McCurtain Gazette News broke the news about County Commissioner Mark Jennings, along with 3 other leaders caught on tape in a March 6 meeting, making threatening, racist, and comments about Black people and reporters. Since then, Jennings has resigned from his position as county commissioner. Governor Kevin Stitt's office confirmed that. Stitt previously said that he was seeking the resignations of McCurtain County Sheriff Kevin Clardy, Sheriff's Captain Alicia Manning, Jail Administrator Larry Hendricks, along with former Commissioner Jennings. While Jennings is gone, the other 3 have yet to share any plans to leave.
And this is just another example of just sort of how systemic this stuff is. You know, these folks got together and they were talking about Black folks. They were talking about journalists, you know, in some of the crudest terms, in some of the most inhumane terms.
That's right.
A clear violation of the public trust, right? And so, you know, this isn't happening someplace over there. This is happening in so many different parts of the country.
And it's happening now.
Yep.
This is 2023. It's happening now. These conversations that are coming to light are happening now.
You're right. Well, moving over to Tennessee, Juneteenth will now be an official state holiday in the state. The Tennessee House on Thursday gave the final passage to legislation designating June 19th as an official state holiday, following Senate passage last month. Lawmakers voted 61-18 to approve the bill with bipartisan passage, and 18 Republicans voted against it. An additional 10 Republicans were recorded as present and not voting.
All right, congratulations to Tennessee. I guess they ain't want no more problems,
Surprise,
for now.
surprise.
All right, let's travel to Egypt, where Egyptian authorities are calling out Netflix for allegedly blackwashing the African Queen's Queen Cleopatra docuseries. That's it. It's narrated and executive produced by Jada Pinkett Smith. Cleopatra is played by this lady here, British biracial actress Adele James. Now, Pinkett Smith said she, quote, really wanted to represent Black women in her new series. However, Egyptologists and archaeologists, along with other Egyptians, have been speaking out about the, quote, completely fake portrayal of Queen Cleopatra, and have actually filed a legal complaint in the wake of the trailer that was released last week, claiming that Netflix is seemingly trying to, quote, blackwash Egyptian history. What say you, Nicola La Corte, doctor?
I mean, what's so interesting, who knew that Egypt had a media law that was against promoting Afrocentric thinking, which includes slogans and writings aimed at distorting and erasing Egyptian identity. It seems like an attempt to maintain a very certain image and idea of who Egyptians are. I've told you this story off camera before, how in the 5th grade I had a classmate that was Egyptian. My father's from Ghana, and I thought, wow, it's kind of cool that both of us have parents from Africa. And he said, no, my parents are Egyptian, right? And in the 5th grade, he drew a very stark line to say, we ain't the same as the rest of y'all.
I don't know. So, I wasn't really good at math and science, chemistry, all that, but I loved history, geography. And if I can remember correctly, Egypt is on the continent of Africa. Am I correct?
It is.
So it's not too far of a stretch to call them Africans. Am I correct? But they will shut you down in a heartbeat, just like they shut down Kevin Hart, who was on his way to perform, I do believe, and he was excited about the Egyptian and the African culture, and they shut that thing down because they did not appreciate him, connecting them to being African, and it just absolutely blows my mind. Now, if they were in Europe somewhere, maybe in Asia somewhere, but you are a part of that continent that we call Africa.
But it's interesting. I mean, this has been controversial. This has been controversial for a very long time. The identity of Cleopatra has been controversial. Some people,
they were all a color.
Believing that, that she was black. Other people saying no, she was Egyptian. And so, listen, it is a docu-series. It is a point of view. And, we live in a time right now where folks are afraid to hear out or listen to or see opposing points of view. And so whether it's on the screen or it's in books, people are so eager to say that it has to be only one thing.
If you live on the continent of Africa, you're going to be of some shade of color, period. The end. Now, and I know, look, my mom's side of the family, West Indian, colorism is a thing.
Yeah.
The lighter, the better. I get it. But if you live on the continent of Africa, you are going to be on that spectrum, and it's going to be something of color. Now, you can be very light, like some of the Egyptians are, but you're going to be of color, and so it just blows my mind. But that's been going on for centuries.
Well, hopefully all the kerfuffle around this film, it encourages people to actually watch the docu-series on Netflix.
Let me write that, because I got to look that up.
Kerfuffle. Oh, stop it. Up next, while she's looking up kerfuffle, up next, it's a family food hack or just a flat-out tacky incident.
We'll let you be the judge of this TikTok little thing that's quickly gone viral. Don't go anywhere. You're watching Fox Soul's Black Report. All right, we are already on Giggle. It is Friday.
We are.
We love it. All right, welcome back to Fox Soul's Black Report. Time now for our celebrity entertainment and headlines.
That's right. And on Fridays, we like to have a little more fun with these stories.
Yeah.
So here to join in on the conversation is the very funny comedian, Speedy.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Welcome, sir. Welcome to the show.
I'm glad to be here. Glad to hang out with you guys.
Glad to have you here. All right, Speedy, let's get into it, honey. These stories, we got the first one right here.
That's right. Well, it looks like Young Miami and Diddy are no longer an item.
She confirms the news in a new magazine interview. Speedy, she said that, they were talking about how they would approach doing, being out in the public together with their relationship, saying that eventually people were going to find out because of who they both are, and that Diddy didn't want to get ahead of it, wanted to get ahead of it because he doesn't like people speaking for him.
She went on to say that she was well aware ahead of time of Diddy's newborn child, Love, Sean Combs, and she was not caught off guard, and says that her and Diddy are now just friends. You buying this, Speedy? You think they just friends, or?
I'm not buying it, but it's always a problem if you're over 45 and your girlfriend's named Young anything. Young Chicago, Young LA, Young Miami. It's not going to work out good. But Diddy, hey man, I can't do young. It's young, little, infant. What's these other? I can't do it. I think too, because he had the new baby. I'm pretty sure because he had a newborn, it's gonna be hard to have a relationship. And they probably was dating when he had the baby. So
yeah, and there was another young lady in the mix, like an IG model or something. So it was about 3 or 4 of them, you know, in rotation. I really thought that after Kim's death, that, you know, it would kind of shift him in another direction. But he seems to be more of a playboy now than he was while she was, you know, still here with us physically. And
yeah,
you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, to each his own, but I just thought he'd kind of, you know, come out of that a little
settle
bit.
down. Go ahead, settle down.
I feel like Diddy's always been a playboy.
Yeah, but
yeah,
but then after, you know, Kim passed, he was just talking about so much regret, how he should have, you know, settled down with her and, you know, made things right. And so I was thinking that maybe that might be the vein that he was still in, but oh no, he getting it in.
Yeah, I met her. She's a very beautiful woman, very
sweet
cool.
Girl.
Yeah, yes, he was.
All right, let's move on to R. Kelly. He's appealing one of his 2 federal sex crime convictions.
That's right. The singer's attorneys argue at least 4 jurors seated in the 2021 New York case have admitted prejudice, prejudging his guilt, and 2 of them had watched a documentary series about them. They also claim that the government didn't meet its burden of proof.
So Kelly, as we know, he's serving 30 years for sex trafficking and was sentenced to a separate 20 years in a child porn case in Chicago. Speedy?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not sure where you want to go with this. We can go back to Young Miami.
Yeah, R. Kelly, anytime you talk about him, it's pretty heavy.
Yeah, it's a heavy subject, and again, you want to make sure everybody has due process, and that whatever the system, how it's supposed to be set up, that it comes out equal on both sides. And if he feels like something wasn't done right, and someone else on the other side feels the same way, they should be able to go back and just make sure it's a even playing field.
Yeah, and this is a story that Speedy and Nicordelai just keeps telling on itself, because there's like a third installment of Surviving R. Kelly that's out on Netflix. You know, a lot of people, it kind of is floating under the radar because, you know, the story has kind of fled the headlines, if you will. But there's a third installment of Surviving R. Kelly with even more stories and follow up to the stories that we're already familiar with. So it's tragic.
I think it's going to be hard to find a jury that hasn't seen or heard, haven't been tainted. So that's going to be his problem, is trying to find some people who don't, or his lawyers trying to find people who are just in the middle and don't really know much and just want to take the evidence and do it that way. But
and so is it even possible to get a fair case? Who knows? But but going on to amusement parks can be pricey outings for a family, especially when it comes to ordering food. But there's I heard about it too. Let me tell you about it. There's one food hack that's going viral on TikTok with mixed reviews.
The account Shay and Dream posted this video on TikTok. They came to the park with wrapped presents for a birthday party, but inside, you know how we do, was some food. Warm, home-cooked hot dogs, individually wrapped and ready to go.
So this is the question. Is this genius or is it tacky? Speedy, have you ever snuck food into an amusement park before? Are you guilty?
I know it don't look like it, but I have 8 kids. Yes, I have. Now, I did do that one.
Eight kids? Did you say 8?
You said 8?
8. I said 8.
Oh, okay. All right, Speedy.
For me, that's excellent. I'm with it. I just don't have that many shoe boxes. I usually throw them away, but I won't throw them away anymore. But that was genius. I would do that every single time.
Wow. Yeah. Well, movie definitely.
That's like the ladies that go to the movies with the big purse.
I was going to say definitely movie theater.
Yeah.
Wow.
Are you guys still
I'm still taking it back. You got 8 kids. You don't
what
look
are
like
their I know. What are their ages, Speedy?
I mean, you have more or less kids than Nick Cannon.
Oh, less. Speedy is the comedian today, Nicordelai, but that was funny. What are their ages, Speedy? Wow.
38 to 14.
38 to 14.
Right.
And then I have 2 grandkids. I have a 5-year-old and a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
So,
No, you don't look like it. You look fancy.
Yeah, we made a turn here. You know, Little Miami is crazy. You can
keep going back to that. All right, here we go. Let's go to New York City. They have a new leader in what they're calling the war on rats.
Joyce, close your eyes. The mayor just named the Big Apple's so-called rat czar. Kathleen Karate, a former elementary school teacher, will serve as the city's first ever director of rodent mitigation.
For $150,000 a year. I don't know about that in New York. That's not a lot. She will coordinate with city agencies and use new technology to reduce the rat population.
$150,000. All them rats?
I could have got it done. I could have got it done for $150. Me and my 8 kids could have rounded them off, though.
I don't. You would have been bringing hot dogs to everywhere you go. In New York on $150,000. That's kind of not a lot for New York. But
I think what they have to do first, rats come because there's trash and there's somewhere to go eat. I think you have to get rid of the trash first, and then you can start to eliminate some of the rats. Now, I've met some of the rats in New York. They actually don't run from you. They kind of like, what's up?
They don't run. They look like the cousins of cats.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's a good point. Maybe the trash czar and the rat czar need to really work together hand in hand. I'm hoping they do. That makes sense.
They didn't say how she got the job. Like, was other people interviewed, or she just got it?
I know that we talked about the qualifications, and I don't quite remember what they were, but her background is education. So
yeah, that's weird.
Is she gonna teach the rats not to, come into people's houses? So,
them rats. This is all I know. Them rats in New York, they gonna learn today.
But I feel like if she got the job, she's qualified. Yeah.
Well, caught on camera, a man goes on a profanity-laced tirade aboard a Southwest Airlines flight just because a baby wouldn't stop crying.
So a passenger says the plane was circling the West Palm Beach airport for about an hour before the outburst happened. That's when the baby and a man both had meltdowns. Take a listen. Oh my goodness.
We are in a tin can with a baby in a echo chamber, and you want to talk to me about being okay?
Okay, because you're yelling.
So is the baby.
Okay, so you're a man.
Did that pay extra to yell?
Okay.
No. So, you and shut up.
No.
Oh, wow. Funny, not funny? When things got heated, passengers tried to help the man calm down, especially that lady sitting there holding his hand. But that did not help. The flight attendants were quick to catch on to what was happening, and they moved the mother and her children to a different part of the plane.
Southwest employees gave the man 2 options: to get off the plane, or they would deboard everyone and forcibly remove him from the plane.
Oh, my goodness. Speedy, what say you?
I've been there. I was the kid. I had the kid that was kicking the back of the seat.
Ooh.
We're flying. My son at the time was 3. We're flying to Seattle. He kicked that seat all the way to Seattle.
Yikes.
And the only thing, he didn't yell at me, but he stared at me every 5 minutes. And as we were landing, my son fell asleep, so everybody was mad at me. So
oh my goodness.
I've been there. I just think, wow, it's because it happens all the time. Kids cry. The kids are going to cry. But I've never gotten that angry. He was, I felt bad for the young lady by him.
Well,
my goodness.
To this man's defense, they say that if there is a defense, they say the baby was crying for like almost an hour.
Yeah, but that's no excuse. Again, it's a kid. We're adults. We have language. They don't. That kid was probably just as annoyed on that plane as that man was, and so it's a case of adults behaving badly, and he was wrong for that.
But at what point is it a parent thing where you're able? I don't want to use the word control, but where you're able to govern or manage your child and their behavior, especially in preparation for a flight. I was just in a store the other day, and I could hear a baby having a fit, and I was way on the other side of the store, and this baby had a fit for at least until they left the store, and everybody was like, "My God!" So, like, at what point do you say, parents,
let babies be babies, and adults
you
stop
say that because you ain't
badly.
got none.
Yes.
Now, do you ever see kids crying like that, and you go and stare at them? Because black people, we go stare at them. Stop. That's what I do. I stare at them.
We stare at them, and you know what we say to them? Use your words. Use your words. So Speedy, we've got to ask you before we go, and thanks so much for being here today.
It was fun.
Tell us, what are you doing? What's new with you? Where can people catch you?
I have a radio podcast called Roll Out Live with Speedy and Friends. Super funny show. A little bit more racy than this show. Your show is fantastic. Mine's a little, but it's a very, very funny show. Guaranteed to make you laugh. I usually tell people if you have an open mind, you're going to laugh and you're going to feel good. And we're on for like 4 hours, but it seems like an hour. But it's called Roll Out Live with Speedy and Friends podcast. Definitely check it out. Also, too, for you guys know, hey, that is me. I was a lot smaller then. Okay, cool. Make sure you check. And also, too, shout out to my best friend going on 33 years, my man, Mr. Jamie Foxx. Keep him in your prayers. He is doing better. He is doing better. So, to the things that you may see on the internet, he is doing a lot.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for, mentioning that. You get a lot of mixed messages and CO conspiracies across social media. We've been just trying to focus in on lifting him up and the family up and good close friends like yourself up, because I know it is tough. Yeah. Yes, yeah. But he's doing good and the prayers are working. Good. Well, tell him we love him, and when he gets, back on par, he better come sit right here. That's right. We've been going to the mat, going to the cloth for Jamie.
I'll make prayer closets.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much, Speedy. We appreciate you. Travel safe, and tell all the 8 babies we said hey.
Take care, brother.
Thank you guys.
All right, hon. And soulmates, don't you go anywhere. We'll be right back.
You're watching Fox Soul's Black Report.
You see it there. It's our favorite part of the show. Welcome back to Fox Soul's Black Report. It is Black Excellence time.
That's right.
We want you to meet a 9-year-old founder of the Paris Cares Foundation that is feeding the needy in St. Louis.
That's right. Little Paris Williams was inspired by a character in the book when she was only 5 years old. Now she's running a foundation that helps the homeless. Paris takes frequent trips to the grocery store to fill bags with food, and to date, she's delivered 10,000 meals and nearly 5,000 care packages through her foundation. She even draws pictures on the bags and leaves written messages so everyone feels special. The young philanthropist is supported by her family, which includes her stepdad and brother. Little Paris hopes to grow her Paris Cares Foundation so that she can expand her resources to needy people beyond the St. Louis community. All right, for the full run on today's stories like that one and more, you can access Fox Soul's video on demand. You can download the Fox Soul app as well. Thanks for joining us today. Have a great weekend. I'm Courtney Hicks. And I'm Nicordelai Corte. From all of us here at Fox Soul's Black Report, especially on the anniversary of Prince's death, have a wonderful weekend and stay lifted. We love you. Stay safe.